So this is Ultima III Exodus for the Commodore 64, and I hope that the name Ultima is well known enough that even if somebody's never played any of the Ultima games, they may recognize the name of the series. This is, as I just mentioned, Ultima 3. There were, of course, two versions of Ultima prior to this, Ultima 1 and 2. And even before that is a game some people consider to be the genesis of the Ultima game, Akelabeth. It's not really part of the series, but a lot of people do consider that when talking about Ultima. This is a fairly complete set, except for the box, marketing material, and the registration card. This is the player reference card for the Commodore 64. Again, if you look at the bottom, it says designed by Lord British, Commodore 64 conversion by Chuckles. This is the reference card. This is what you would keep near your computer as you play this. Has all the keyboard commands: attack, board, cast a spell, descend the ladder, and a list of all the spells. And on the back is your movement keys. There's no WASD. This is long before that became a standard. There's a brief paragraph on how to create a copy of the scenario disk, which is actually your data disk. Create a scenario disk, load the Exodus program, press C, and the scenario copy utility takes 12 minutes. On the bottom you will see also the Commodore 64 version requires 4 minutes loading time. So this is kind of a long game to start playing and to just load, but I'll go through the material first. This is the reference card, as I mentioned. There was also the book of play, the Exodus book of play, or the Exodus Ultima 3 book of play, which is your in-depth manual, which is a lot of details about the game world and all the other information you might need along the way. The phases of the moon, the shops, and so on. There's also the Ancient Liturgy of Truth, which is the spell book for the cleric class. And then there is also the Book of Amber Runes, which is the spell book for the wizard class. Of probably more interesting importance is the cloth map, which is included, or was included, in the Ultima 3 game. This is kind of typical of many of the Ultima games where they included some sort of a physical representation of the game. This is a map. You can see on the sides, maybe, some depiction of the towns or dungeons and some kind of ruins. And over time, you would mark the map, or you might mark the map, but cross-reference it with the locations in the game. You probably can't see on this map, but somebody wrote a 6 here, a 5 here, and so on. This is, of course, not my original map. That's long gone, but I did the same thing. I had this hanging on the wall next to my computer, and as I found interesting points, I would mark them on the various locations in the map. So we will put that out of the way. There is also, of course, the floppy disk. As far as I can tell, this is an original floppy disk. Exodus Ultima 3 by Lord British. Origin Systems. Side A is the program. Side B is the player master. And the disk is write protected, so you have to make a copy of the second side, the data disk. And that was the reference on the player handbook to create a copy of the scenario disk. That'd be the very first thing you would do as you unbox it, is to create a copy of the scenario disk. So you have to make sure you have a formatted floppy. This is a single-sided double density, typical floppy that's been formatted in a 1541, and I will use that as I load the program. Now, to make this a little bit more interesting, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I tend to go for authenticity, the feeling of the game as you would play it when it was new. And this game was released in, let's see if I can find it, copyright 1983. I don't know if this is, if I played it in 1983. It is the first Ultima game I played, and I know I didn't play Ultima 4. Don't know when Ultima 4 came out, but I played this sometime between 1983 and whenever Ultima 4 came out. But anyways, back to authenticity. What I'm going to do for fun is I have this clock, which I am going to run as I go through the various process. And this is exactly what you would do, not with the clock, but the process is what you would do is you open the box, create your scenario disk, and then load the game. And if you can imagine yourself as, I want to say a teenager, but you very well didn't have to be a teenager, but if you can imagine yourself as a teenager in 1983 playing this game and having to spend whatever, 15 minutes minimum just to create the scenario disk, gives you an idea. I have, of course, here my Commodore 64. You don't see it. Down here is a 1541. But first, let me plug in the clock. And you can see the clock. One of the LEDs is blown, but it is a accurate clock. I'll just reset this to 0 here. I'll reset this to 0. La, 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 la. So I'm at 30 seconds in through my spiel. So I'll set this aside. I'll leave it running. First thing we do is turn on the 1541, and you may hear the infamous disk knock. I will turn on the monitor, and this is not authentic because it's a LED monitor, an LCD monitor. And then turn on the Commodore 64. I have Jiffy DOS in the Commodore 64, but I don't have Jiffy DOS in the 1541, so there's no real speed boost. So you load your directory as usual, and list. There's only one file, and unlike many other games, you don't do "8, 1", just do "8" and press enter, and then you run. And this is basically the introduction screen. This will stay on the screen for a couple of minutes. When it gets to the Exodus screen, the very first splash screen, you press C to begin the copy utility. So rather than sit here for a couple of minutes before it gets to that screen, I'm going to pause the video. We're only at 2 minutes in, thanks to my droning on. So I'll pause. So this is the very first splash screen. I have to press C to get to the copy utility. And it only took a minute to load. It's at 3 minutes. So we wait for it to load the copy utility. It says Exodus Ultima III player disk duplicator. Please insert player master and press any key. Player master is actually on the second side of this disk. It's a floppy disk. Side B, player master. There's no label on it, but flip it over and then press enter, and the screen will flicker like that, I guess, just to tell you it's doing something. And I hope you've got your formatted floppy handy. I don't know how long it'll take to do this, but again, I'm going to pause the video. We're not too far in, 349, 350, so I'll pause again. Okay, so it just prompted me to insert the formatted destination disk. We're at 6 minutes, so it didn't take a whole long time. So we pop out the player master. Insert our blank formatted disk. Press enter. And it continues on. You can't see the 1541, but I can, and it is indeed writing. And it'll do this one more time. So I'm going to pause again the video at 6:45 and see you in another couple of minutes. Okay, after 2 disk swaps, or 4, depending on how you count, the copy is done. And my clock has just about hit 16 minutes. So give or take a few minutes from my babbling, but about 15 minutes from turn on to creating a copy of the disc. So you take your newly copied disc and you would put a label on it. And this is important. This is where your characters and your party and your game saves would be stored, because this disc is your master and it is write protected, so you have to have the player master copy. That's the reason for this. So you would, when you're done playing, you would just stick these 2 aside and put it in your folder and stick it aside and go play Bard's Tale or something like that. So it's really important that you do this. You actually can't play the game unless you do this. So it may seem like an exercise in futility, 15 minutes waste of time, but it is necessary. And unfortunately it says copy complete, but there is literally nothing we can do on the computer. It would be nice if they would allow you to, press a key to restart or go back into the game. You can't even press the run, stop, restore works. So let's see if I just do a run. No, see, I can't do a run, so I have to reset the Commodore 64 back to the startup screen, the Commodore startup screen. And run. Now we're getting ready to even just run the game. So 17 minutes into the process. Of course, if you were doing this, for real or at home, and you would probably go off and watch TV in the meanwhile. But if you ever hear anybody reminiscing about the bad old days, these were the bad old days. And don't get me wrong, growing up in these days, these are definitely the good old days to me. Just remember where we came from. You could run this game in Vice with a couple of disk images and set it at warp speed, and the game would be copied and loaded in less than a minute. But this is how we would do it in the for real, and that's the purpose of this video. So I'm just gonna pause this yet again, and I'll be back shortly. It is 18:30. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, and it is 21 minutes. I'm also running out of time on my video camera, which only has 30 minutes, and I'm at 25 minutes, so I'm going to have to stop this. What you do here is you swap your newly created scenario disk in, and then press a key, and it'll go into a little splash screen, and it'll play some demo music from the game. It'll loop every 5 minutes or so. I'm going to press enter. Hopefully someone out there who might be watching this will find themselves transported back 30 years ago when they hear this music. I know it brought back some strange memories for me. So I'll press return. Okay, that's pretty much it for now. I'm going to pause this, and of course I have to restart the game, so I don't want to let it sit here for the next half hour playing that music, driving me nuts, while I prepare my video camera. Alright, thank you.